Liberia is located in the northwest part of Africa, on the coast of the South Atlantic Ocean. Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Côte d'Ivoire are bordering countries of Liberia.
The Liberian's history. In 1820, American Colonization Society sends its first immigrants to Sherbet Island, which was a small island that was located in between Sierra Leone and Liberia. The island's swampy, unhealthy conditions resulted in a high death rate among the settlers as well as the society's representatives. The British governor allowed the immigrants to relocate to a safer area temporarily while they worked on making the island a little bit healthier, safer place to stay. In 1847, they signed a Declaration of Independence with the United States of America, and they changed their home country's name to Liberia and made it their own. Also, about a year later, their constitution was ratified and the first elections were held. The Liberian colony's former governor, Joseph Jenkins Roberts, was elected as Liberia's first president. In 1875, a war broke out between the Confederation of Grebo people. The Liberian government asked the United States to serve as a mediator. In response, a United States emissary visited the Gazebo Kingdom and the Liberian Republic and dispatched a naval ship to assist the Liberian government in settling the conflict. In 1883, Liberia's first native-born president was born. He was the son of Hillary Johnson and Elijah Johnson. In 2002, the women started an organization called Women in Peace Building Network, who collaborated with a group called Liberian Muslim Women's Organization. After a long time of war, Liberia is finally enjoying their fourth year of peace and recently elected their first woman president. Her name is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who was put to office in January 16, 2006. In 2005, 80,000 of the 1.7 million people who voted were women, which is probably why Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was voted in, which is a good thing. In 2009, UNDP trained about 17,000 women to take loans, and within a year, there were 50 businesses in Liberia. 77% of women are now self employed. However, the study also showed that the women who did not participate in most profitable sectors such as infrastructure, public works, cash crop farming, and mining. In 2006, 453 women were actively involved in the elections, actively meaning they were part of the politician campaigns, they helped people campaign, they were lobbying, they were being delegates, and all that other good stuff. In 2003, because of the war, WIP-NET, Women's in Peace Building Network, spearheaded the Women in Liberia Mass Action for Peace campaign to confront and engage the rebels directly traveling from all over the country and region. In 2006, the World Bank did an experiment on Liberia on gender differences and found that the women who participated did not have nearly as great of a pay as the men did. Also, they did not have nearly as much education as the men did, and they're hoping that would change by 2014. Women usually tend to do most of the household chores and cooking. Household chores meaning taking care of the children, taking them to school, cleaning, cooking, all that other, usually the feminine, quote unquote, feminine stuff. When producing rice, the men will clean the forest and will burn the dry brush, while the women will usually do all the planting, harvesting, watering the plants, and taking care of the plants. A large majority of the women are housemakers, but change is currently on the rise, hence the 77% of the women having a decent job.
Women have played a large part throughout the history of Liberia. They comprise 54% of the labor force. Agriculturally speaking, they constitute the majority of producers and create approximately 60% of the products. They are responsible for more than 80% of trade activities in rural areas and heavily engage in the artisanal fishing industry. They are able to do all this and maintain a household. Though very large contributors to society, they remain the most disadvantaged. They are delegated to the least productive areas like agriculture, where 90% of women remain. Their area of delegation means small earnings and often exploitation. Due to the high levels of sexual violence and low levels of education, most women have been pregnant at least once before they turn 18. Women are also vulnerable and exposed to gender-based violence and sexual exploitation. Young girls are a primary target. Much of the problems have been reduced since the end of the years of conflict, but rape continues to be a serious issue in Liberia. All the indigenous groups of Liberia are patrilineal and maintain ideologies of male homogenies. The ideologies brought when the American settlers came to Liberia in the 1820s was also very patriarchal. Most women were assigned to homemaker and nurturer roles in society. Women do not possess formal authority, but the sexual division of labor in the indigenous agriculture allows females a significant amount of power. Women, as homemakers, among the civilized natives, have great importance, referring to status within the culture. It is acceptable for an educated woman to have a business type career, but she can no longer participate in the common activities of the indigenous people, like farming, because this would endanger her status in the community. Marriage among most natives of Liberia is polygamous and patrilocal. Less than 30% of males have more than one wife because most of those marriages fail due to conflicts between co-wives. The process of marriage includes a payment to the bride's family. This is usually a significant amount of money, which takes multiple years for the man to pay off. The marriage is completed with the birth of children. The bride wealth gives the husband the right to claim all the children of the wife, regardless of the biological father. Women are in high demand because of their ability to bear children and maintain agriculture and produce. Because of this, any woman that desires to marry does not wait long for a man. Later on, some women pay their husband back the bride wealth in order to gain their freedom from an unwanted marriage. Most successful men have one or more country wives, which do work and bear children. These wives are purchased through a bride wealth agreement. The man also has a ring wife. This woman is the wife that gets to live with the man in his household. All the children born in the family are raised in the husband's household with his ring wife. All these types of marriage agreements are held by men with prominent backgrounds and important government officials.
Liberia has been in the midst of a civil war for about the last 20 years, and sex has played a big role in their war tactics. In Liberia, warlords and militias recruited most of their soldiers through coercion, and as a result, many women and girls were trapped and forced to take part. The women and girls were forced to become female combatants and wives to the male soldiers. They were forcibly conscripted to bear weapons and act as sexual partners and nurses for wounded soldiers, even though some volunteered. The rebels usually chose young women and girls because they assumed them to be virgins, resilient, and healthy. Some women were forced to become sex slaves during this conflict, and when they were forced to fight, the rebels drugged them and did some pretty torturous things. They carved the names of the rebel group into the girls with razor blades. abduction and rape of women in Liberia is relatively common. It was used as a weapon of war during times of conflict and to dehumanize the women as well as the communities that they belong to. In an effort to educate the women, they've made a radio soap opera which informs women on the issues of early pregnancies, HIV, AIDS, and other issues. Rape is so common that in some areas up to 1/3 of women asked said that their first sexual experience was forced. And in addition to this, Liberia has yet to outlaw domestic violence. A new issue on the rise in Liberia is sex for grades at universities, which is where female students are obligated to sleep with their professors to get good grades. A program manager for women's and girls' rights says that transactional sex is so entrenched in university life that it's seemingly accepted practice. Some women choose to do it, although most are under the assumption that this is how women get ahead in life. A study found that about 85% of female students had been sexually harassed or were involved in transactional sex while they studied. During conflicts, women are raped with the deliberate intent of infecting them with HIV in order to ensure that their deaths are painful, protracted, and destabilizing for communities beyond the immediate conflict. Women in certain villages can be attacked specifically based on their actual or perceived HIV status. Also, in traditional village marriages, women are considered the property of the husband and are denied custody of children in the event of a divorce. Parents often use the marriages of their daughters as an occasion to improve their own financial situation. And even though the legal age of marriage is 18 for girls, most parents marry off their daughters at ages 12 to 15, often for monetary gain. There have been recent efforts made to improve women's standing in their culture. They have just elected a new female president, which is Africa's first female president, and she states that as a result, the winds of change have begun to blow in women's affairs. They've established a group called the WPI, or Women's Peace Initiative, and they say that even though many women remain displaced and homeless, Liberian women have been resilient and are at the forefront of creating the present climate of peace. In 2003, Liberia came out of a brutal conflict which claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people and displaced at least 1 million others in camps inside and outside of the country. Most Liberians live on less than $1 per day, and due to limited economic opportunities, many young women are turning to prostitution for a living. 9 years after the war, the economy is slowly recovering, and foreign investors are in a race to exploit Liberia of its natural resources and opportunities. Among these is their booming sex trade. In the capital of Monrovia, as well as many other cities, sex workers regularly occupy the street corners to wait for customers. In 2003, the women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace organized a nonviolent protest that included a sex strike. As a result, the women were able to achieve peace in Liberia after a 14-year civil war and helped bring power to the country's first female president. The two women who started this campaign, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Lema Gowie, received a Nobel Prize for their work and the success of their campaign.